between the walls of this?
On the east and west sides?
Yeah. Probably 5 feet, 5, 6 feet. The sidewalk, I think, is 4. We've got about 2 feet to the old buildings, and then there'd be 6, 8 inches up to this.
And the drainage goes to the alley?
Pardon me?
All the roof drainage goes to the alley?
Yeah, I suppose you could split it and go half to the front and half to the back. That's what they may want to do since it's so long.
Well, the main gutters are in the alley, that's what.
Right. I don't know, I assume everybody knows, we have an apartment behind the real estate office, and we love it. On the bad days and when the weather's nasty, we stay there and walk up and go to work, so.
I guess we need to hear some of the naysayers that are probably sitting here, why they don't want it, or what other suggestions they've got for buildings and stuff there then, so if that's why you're here, if you're here in support of it, I guess.
Yeah,
I'd like
I'll
to
build
hear that too.
anything, I don't care if you guys want a tennis court, I'm just looking for a project, so I don't, doesn't matter to me what it is, but this is what I'm getting all the calls for is apartments, so.
I'm all for it. I think it's great, and I think that somebody wanting to invest that much money in our downtown, that's awesome. I would like to see retail rather than the offices, because we have so many retail that have turned to offices that, to help my business as well as some of these others, retail would help. And there are people that do want to come into town, but the buildings aren't there.
But
New buildings would be such a,
in my opinion, the difference between an apartment and an office is a bed or a desk. Still the same footprint. You need a greeting area, you need 2 offices, you need a bathroom and a furnace room, so. I'll take their rent, as long as they're not selling flowers.
but no, that's just my opinion. I would like to see the retail in the front. I love the apartments in the back.
Yeah, and that's, I wanna have it open for that, but what do we do if we sit there and nobody wants to do it?
I don't think you have that problem.
Huh? But I'd like to see it retail also.
I agree with that 100%. We've lost so much retail uptown, it's pretty sad.
The fact is, and when you do the research, in the last 5 years, everything in downtown is really fading strong, and a lot of people, when they build, they want to be on the highway. And if it's any kind of a franchise, they require you have to be able to see it from the 4 sections. So, and that's just, believe me, I want to see it all full.
But if you're building apartments for people to walk to things, they need things to walk to.
Exactly.
Right, I agree.
Exactly.
I agree. We want all the buildings full,
Oh,
and that's slowly happening, so.
with decent rent too, that people can afford.
Right.
I guess, Kevin, we talk about the retail in the front, but if you build it and the next day somebody comes and wants to rent it as an apartment, you'll probably rent it or buy it as a condo, you'll probably sell it.
We'll do those last, and we'll leave the cabinets out. I mean, what I've done, I've tried to do what's best for the city too, but like I say, my own opinion is I don't care what they are. I would love to have 2 offices in there. Yeah. They're an easier renter than the apartment is. So I mentioned to Aaron, I said, we're worried about the apartments, and I said I'd just have to chuckle if it went all offices. I don't know what'll happen,
Kevin, what if, on the park side or on the statue side,
On
you
the front?
would put a styrofoam facade, with the stucco, and square it off, so you have a square look to it to match up what the front facade is on most of the downtown buildings.
But we can do anything. I mean,
Where, you put the blocks and get relief, like underneath the windows and maybe on top of the windows. You know what I'm talking about, that look?
the fake brick that hangs.
Well, the fake brick and then the stucco
There's a
facade.
real brick that hangs, there's problems with ice. There's actually an imitation
Yeah.
one that's better, that they're
Yeah.
actually
But I'm saying
steel or-
instead of keep your pitch roof, but in front of your pitch roof, behind the statue, if you went up a ways and then squared it off, so, just basically hide, and maybe even on your sidewalks have a couple arches on your facade, just to kind of disguise it a little bit.
Like I said, I'm open to all that. It's the, if they want the apartments or not is the whole key, because if we don't get past that, none of that stuff matters.
Mhm.
So you're thinking you'll still leave the statue and,
Everything stays. The
how
sidewalks,
far up will this go?
to where there's a curve in the sidewalk. It's about maybe 10 feet. It's just, I just measured that big square.
The other thing is, like in the back, I don't know if you guys pay attention back there, but between the library and Deb's business and Juanita's, you know, there's nowhere to park. I mean, the parking is so full back there, and Deb and I were talking about, and that was one of her questions is, I mean, you have the garages, but if people are gonna park, there's really nowhere to park back there. I mean, it's full up pretty much. Like, I can't even park behind my building usually, because somebody's there. There's not much space to park back there.
Well, the alley has to be kept open for the flow of traffic, so when they each have their own garage,
But I mean, I'm just asking, because it's like really crammed between the post office, you know, everybody's trying to fit in
Right.
all those spaces.
Right.
There's a lot of.
The other thing we're joking about is I think everybody has to have their own garage. We'll probably get 4 salesmen that don't even use the garage and, you know,
Because already, like in Clifton's building, those people, there's like nowhere really to park, so they're not always parked where they should be parked, and, you know, that's all I'm at,
Right.
Devin was talking about it, so. He said that's about that.
Okay, another thing of concern, speaking of which, Clifton's apartment is the garbage.
I would agree.
Where's the garbage and refuge
I would agree.
containers? You're gonna have to
Actually, get
have
best in
a
the
roll off
front of the building.
no, it's
or smoke.
it's picked up every few days for commercial. They pick ours up right in the alley.
But you're gonna have a dumpster or a small
You set the
dumpster.
bag out on the day they pick it up.
This looks like
Yeah.
a garage.
That magically goes away.
Like that facing the street. It's unattractive like that.
I know Clifton's apartment usually ends up in our dumpster, so we fill it fast enough.
Yeah, it's, the cutout in our building is actually in Humboldt side, and that's kind of a drop-off point, I think, for half of Humboldt. It gets full every week, so.
So is there anyone there that doesn't want to see this project go through? I mean, is there, you know, someone that's totally against this kind of a deal for Main Street and
Well, I
stuff like
kind
that?
of wonder what keeps somebody from building an apartment in the industrial park. You're doing the same thing here. I came to town with my business to have retail district. And I don't,
What if I
Kevin,
wanted to- what
whatever
if I wanted
Kevin
to-
touches, he does a nice job, I will say that. And I think you put that thing together, you know, an interesting comment was made here. If you build a building and somebody comes with a business, they will come in. That's the same philosophy you use in the industrial park. You build a spec building and hope that a business will come into it. Why didn't the city do that in the first place? Why didn't they build a spec building there with the idea of retail coming into it? Why couldn't you put 3 storefronts in that?
You know, to be honest with you, as much as I hate to say this, but I don't think anybody here would probably want to spend that kind of money for downtown Humboldt. You know, the county. I mean,
Why not?
There's a building for sale down there now.
you know, we've got a beautiful, almost fairly new building, I'll call it, that we could buy, that, you know, if the council wanted to buy it for $70,000, where Gary Evening was. I don't see anybody jumping up to a 70,000, which is probably, what, 4,000 square feet, Kevin, on a rough estimate?
Yeah.
And we're looking at, if we build a new building, minimum $500,000 in it, if we built on Main Street. Where are we gonna get $500,000 buyers, I guess is what I'm asking, I guess, you know, for 3 businesses, that's $150,000 apiece.
How many square feet is there?
On that property?
Yeah.
Well, you're talking, what, 3,000? Maybe 4,000 with the garages and stuff?
Yeah. 856 times 4, and then.
You must
12
be
by
using
24.
an awfully expensive contractor. If you're gonna spend $500,000 on that.
You can't build a building for $100 a square foot if you're gonna build it for retail. So we're 400,000 minimum without getting in.
It's my
you know,
first
you-
bid's come in about 300,000, so that's.
Without a
right.
signed lease.
Without anything. So now we're probably talking closer to 450. We just built a spec building up on top of the hill. That's 6,000 square feet. How big is that?
6,000.
That's 6,000 square feet that we've got 400,000 plus in, and has no floor and no interior in it. So I'm gonna tell you, that's a minimum $450,000 to put on Main Street for retail businesses. That's a minimum $1,500 a month if you split it up 3 times.
If I were coming to this town today, what do you have for an incentive to bring in a retail store? You have nothing.
Not much that I know of, anyway.
Aaron knows about the town that came and approached us and what they have. Their website makes ours look sick. They have an incentive because they understand that if you're gonna entice a retail store, or if you entice a industry, you have to have a program in place. You have to have incentives for them to come here. You basically have to buy them to come into the area.
Doesn't supply and demand take care of itself if you let investors do it?
You're on Main Street, what could you afford for rent?
What could I afford
Yeah.
for rent? Well,
Could you spend $2,000 a month on rent?
I don't believe Kevin can build these and rent them for $800 a month.
Guess I'll be stuck then.
Yeah. You guys put that park together with the idea that it was going to be available for retail. You haven't even let it sit there for very long, and all of a sudden you're gonna use it up. And I understand what Kevin wants to do. He wants a project. Are there no other areas in this town to build in besides the center of the retail district?
Could be, again, that's why I'm asking, is there, if there's somebody else wants to build a building there.
I'm-
The
we'll-
the last
is
one
there-
is the one I sold where I was gonna build the office that's right behind it, that he's doing the storage condos. That was the last. And that's getting built on. Those will go for 68,000 times 4.
Well, I can tell you that 29 years ago, when we came to this town, what enticed us was the building, the availability of it being there, the business, the downtown retail district. If I were to come to this town today, it would be quite different. And anybody who comes in with any kind of retail store is now going into the towns where they offer programs for them to come in as a retail store.
How long did Thomas Jewelers sit empty before we bought that?
Quite a while.
That was a lot of square footage for the money.
Yeah. But it wasn't for sale for a long time. It sat there because the people didn't want to do anything with it, not because it wasn't for sale.
They were approached.
But 30, I was part of my father was involved when they tore down Johnson Department Store. 30 years that sat empty. And it's not a retail, what I would call a retail business, it's offices and stuff. but
So
I
if
guess
you
that's
take
not what I
apart
call
the fact that it's not a retail district anymore, what does that do to the property taxes on the buildings that are left? Because it no longer is a retail district.
Oh, it's still a retail district, Jim. I mean, you have apartments above retail right now. That doesn't change, it's still a retail district. These are just downtown apartments or condos. It'll remain retail business district. And I agree somewhat to what you're saying, as far as.
I'm voicing
As far as
questions that I
retail.
haven't
Well,
asked
that's
you
what-
before.
And that's why we're glad you're here, that's what we
Right.
want to hear. We need to know, we want to hear everybody's views and stuff, that's why we're glad everybody's
I
here.
think that's why we're all here. I don't wanna do it if people aren't for it.
Right, best case scenario, to me, would be to have the back 2 apartments and the front 2 have a business move into the front 2. That would be best case scenario.
And
Or
we're
all 4
I
of
think that's what
them,
we all wanna have happen.
I think that's what
You know,
Kevin wants.
yes.
or all 4 of them be built.
But he can't guarantee, he can't make a cash flow with just 2.
Yeah.
And I can understand that, you're just not gonna make it fly with 2. In the end, like you said, you leave the cabinets out of it and you do what you can with it,
But there's gonna be a day when, if nobody wants it for retail.
you're gonna have to do something
Yeah, I'm
with
gonna
it.
have to,
Mhm.
and we just market it that way. I mean, we're not gonna build it overnight, it's gonna take 4 months to build it, so. that
And
can be-
am I wrong in saying that you already have somebody that's interested possibly in something with
Yeah.
retail in front or office and live in the back?
Got some people just inquiring, I guess is
Okay,
probably the best way.
you've got some
to-
inquiries.
Yeah.
Okay.
their question was, can I still run an office out of the front if you're going for condos? And I said, well, that will always be, I don't know if grandfathered in is the right word, but downgraded to where the front ones are always gonna be, they can have an office.
If we would've had a spec building there, would Sisters have taken it, or seen it as a potential?
There's always a possibility, but cost per square footage probably would not be cost effective versus buying something, you know.
I'm curious, what do other cities do to try and entice retail business? Jimmy brought it up. I mean, do you have an example that we can work with? Because I know of
I
nothing.
gave Aaron a whole package from Orange City. And they have low interest. They are buying up the buildings from a fund that they have for retail development.
I don't mean to be
Doesn't
rude,
even-
but can we stay on the subject of, I don't, that's, if you guys wanna promote, I'm asking about if I can do a project and you're on another page.
I understand.
You know, I'm selling apples, you're selling bananas.
Is there anybody on the council against us? I guess that's what we need to ask first.
What if they wanna put a variety store in the front, John?
I would kind of hope so, because, Carol, quite frankly, 2 shoe stores sold more shoes than 1 shoe store, didn't they, Darryl?
Why do you think I'm not there?
Because you like to go out.
It wasn't because they were working me to death, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I understand.
You can't believe where people that call, where they're driving from, where they're renting. I mean, a gal wanted to rent in Humboldt to drive to Belmont, and she's driving from Spencer. I mean, they are driving from all over, and we're just plain losing them.
And a lot of them are, he's right.
So they're not
There's a lot
buying
of them
anything in
working
your
for
store,
God.
they're not eating at the restaurants, you know, they're not buying, we're just losing out.
I understand. My dream was that it would always be retail, but hey, I guess you gotta look at the reality of it.
I think that probably was everybody's dream, I would see retail there, but would like to see it there. But in the end, do you leave it the way that it is and get nothing for it and have it be a liability to the city, which it will be, maintaining it? Do you leave it the way that it is and not get any kind of tax out of it? Or do you put something in that's gonna generate something?
I told Aaron this morning, and
I mean, that's your trade-off. Is it all or nothing? It's the same way with TIF. I hear people complaining about TIF and what people do with TIF. Do you take $10,000 for the property, and then by the time the abatement runs out, you're getting 50? Do you take that 10,000 now, or do you just wash it all out and just do nothing with it and just have it be grass? I mean, we need to decide whether we're gonna grow or whether we're gonna sit. And that's what it amounts to. I would like to see us grow. But like I said, I mean, we were just talking, we've got streets that need to be fixed up, and talking about taxes